like to read verses 1 through 9 as we get ready to get into our lesson this morning. Hear ye this, O priests, and hearken, O ye house of Israel, and give ye ear, O house of the king, for judgment is toward you, because ye have been a snare on Mizpah, and a net spread upon Tabor. And the revolters are profound to make slaughter, though I have been a rebuker of them all. I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hid from me. For now, O Ephraim, thou committest whoredom, and Israel is defiled. They will not frame their doings to turn unto their God, for the spirit of whoredoms is in the midst of them, and they have not known the Lord. The pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity, and Judah also shall fall with them. They shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord. But they shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them. They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. Blow ye the cornet in Gibeah, and the trumpet in Ramah. Cry aloud at Bethlehem, after thee, O Benjamin. Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of rebuke. Among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which shall surely be. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Father, as we continue in this section, it is really obvious to anyone who wants to listen how guilty we stand as sinful people before you. And we are reminded again that you have warned, and you have corrected, and you have rebuked, and you have instructed. And yet when we continue to ignore all those warnings, then certainly the spanking has to come. And Israel in this passage has gotten so out of control that devastation is about to be upon them, and they continue their reckless lifestyle with reckless abandon. And they do not seem to care how guilty they stand before you. I worry that as a nation we are doing the same. But I pray as a church and as individuals, our hearts would be sensitive to the guiding and directing of the Holy Spirit. And we would always give due diligence to your word. That we'd see you high and lifted up. That we would regard your word as important in our lives. And that we would make the necessary adjustments as the rebuke and the correction comes, so that the heavy judgment need never come. Help us not to fall asleep. Help us not to be apathetic. Help us not to be unconcerned. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Last week we hit the pause button a little bit in dealing with the consequences. And we dealt with a term found in verse 5, that they are going to fall. And such a tragedy it is that I felt like we needed to take some time and address it, because it's still important today. He's going to go on right afterwards in verse 6. And sometimes you look at this verse and you say, well, I don't understand. But verse 6 comes in light of what we talked about last week, and how severe the fall is. And in verse 6 he says, they shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them. Now remember, in verse 5 we're talking about this huge tragedy, and in case we don't get it, the very next verse afterward is going to talk about how they stand guilty before him, and he's bringing war, and we're going to see how severe it's going to be. And then next week, in the rest of the chapter, as we finish up the chapter, we're going to see that he tried to deal with them as a moth, and then he had to come in like a lion. And now the devastation is a lot worse than it should have been if they had taken care of this when it was small. We just have this situation that is out of control, and sometimes we have the tendency to say, I don't understand how a loving God could allow this to happen. I couldn't help but think about that this morning during Sunday school. And here we are, we're reading about Sodom and Gomorrah, and they have to be drug out. They're lingering. They're not taking God seriously in any way, shape, or form. You've had all of these things that happened that any one of them should have shook the family up and said, listen, it's time to get out of Lot. To get out of Sodom. And Lot's still arguing with God. Well, let me go to this little city instead of going up to the mountain. Why? It would be really tempting to look down from the mountain and see the smoldering plains of Sodom and Gomorrah and smell the fire and brimstone and say, I don't understand how a living God get so bad before he judged. We see that with Noah. My goodness, if you can only find 8 righteous people to go on the ark, how bad does it have to be? It kind of makes you wonder as we're pushing through the book of Revelation and we get to the end times. Listen, it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. How bad is it going to be before Jesus Christ comes back? It's going to be as bad as it was at Sodom and Gomorrah. It's going to be as bad as it was in Noah's day. You know why? Because here we are. God's been warning, and he's been warning, and he's been dealing, and he's been dealing, and nobody's paying any attention. In verse 7, we have this. In verse 6, we have this situation. It says, they shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord. But they shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them. They would not worship him in the good times. They wanted to chase after Baal. And then Baal fit their sinful lifestyle, and so they just figured out, let's see how I can make God fit into my sinful lifestyle. And what we have here, it would be easy to read this and say, well, that just sounds like an unloving God. I mean, if somebody is coming to worship you and they're bringing their offerings, they're bringing their flocks, why would you turn their back on them? Why wouldn't you be available? But what you don't understand here is the language is, it's not that they've given up their Baal worship. This is like the situation with Paul when he went into the town and he looked at the Greeks and he said, hey, I noticed that you have here all these idols on Mars Hill and you have this one to the unknown God. All they're doing is they're covering all their bases. Maybe Jehovah gets mad at us, so let's figure out how we can fit him into our Baal worship, and then we don't have to change our life at all. Let's bring him his flocks. Let's observe his holy days. Let's continue to do the things that the law says. But there's no heart to it. They have not come to worship God with their heart and their soul. They haven't changed their life at all. They're just simply trying to placate him by adding him to all the other nonsense that's going on in their life. Let me take you to a passage where this was happening. Turn to 1 Samuel chapter 4. 1 Samuel chapter 4 is a sad commentary on the state of Israel at the time. Now, Samuel is supposed to be the prophet that's going on here, and God is having to deal with the nation of Israel, and he's been trying to deal with the nation of Israel, but nobody's listening. And probably nobody's listening because sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, are running around, and they got their own form of temple prostitution going on, which is interesting because when we get to the end of this passage, you're going to read sleeping with all kinds of folks that come in. And he's supposed to be the priest, for crying out loud. Look here at verse 1. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined the battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew the army in the field, about 4,000 men. That's a pretty good hind-end whooping during these days, folks. Now, there are a lot of passages where it's worse. They lost less than this at Ai. A lot less than this. And they realized something was wrong. And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. Now, I'm going to back up and read verse 3 again. I'm going to add a little of my own emphasis, in case you missed it. You ready? And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, wherefore hath the loving Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? How could a loving God do this? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh unto us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people went to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims, and and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, wicked, they are wicked, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. Now, this is our verse that we used in praying for Camp Evangel, and this is why. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore." And the reason I picked this as our memory verse for the month as we were praying for Camp Evangel is because, listen, God can do great things if He's in it, or it can be show of the Ark of the Covenant and nothing happens. How important is it that praying that God is at work? Because if God isn't at work, then it's all for show, and you're going to see a big show. Their response, "Be strong and quit yourselves like men." Why? Well, back up to the verse right before. "Woe unto us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods?" Plural. They don't understand who He is. These are the gods, plural, that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. "Be strong and quit yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews." Whoa. Hit the pause button. Did you catch it? God has already been spanking their little old hind ends. How do you know? Because the Philistines just said, "Hey, we better get serious about this fighting thing, or we're going to be their servants like they have been." But it seems to me that when Joshua was getting ready to go, he said, "Be strong and of good courage, for no one shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life." Right? And all the people said, "Hey, everything you said we'll do. We will be His people, and He will be our God." Apparently not, because He's already brought them under subjection to the Philistines, and they've already been serving Him. So apparently something's going very wrong. Verse 10, "The Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent. And there was a very great slaughter." By the way, the same type of language that was used in our passage in Hosea, where it says they create slaughter. Okay? "For there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen." That's one of the higher numbers that you see in God's judgment. I mean, that is unbelievable. "And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. And there ran a man out of Benjamin, out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent and with earth upon his head. And when he came to Eli, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God." Didn't tremble because they were no disobedience to God. It trembled because he was afraid to lose the ark of God. But he could have cared less that his sons weren't right before God. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? When the man came into the city, he told it. All the city cried out, and when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, "What meaneth the noise of this tumult?" And the man came in hastily, and he told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, "I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army." And he said, "What is there done, my son?" And the messenger answered and said, "Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath also been a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken." And it came to pass when he made mention of the ark of God, that he fell from off of his seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. And he had judged Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, "Fear not, for thou hast borne a son." But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. Did you notice it? It's a long passage. Man, we're getting our hind ends kicked. We got to do something. We need to go down and get the Ark of the Covenant, because it will save us. What does a piece of furniture have to do with anything? This lady is close to being delivered, and when she hears the ark, she immediately goes into labor, and she names her child Ichabod. For the glory of the Lord is departed. Are you kidding me? The glory of God can't be contained in a temple. That's what David told Solomon. How in the world do you think it was going to be in some little thing that 4 people carried around? They were so concerned about losing the Ark of the Covenant, they didn't even realize they'd lost God himself. Here we are in Hosea chapter 5, and the nation of Israel says, you know what? We need to make sure that we worship Jehovah too, because we don't want to make him angry along with Baal and all these other gods we're worshiping. And so God is not interested in token worship. He doesn't care how many times you come to the artifact it is that you have so much faith that is destroyed. What do you have left? You know, the interesting thing is God allowed the Philistines to take the Ark of the Covenant, and if we would go to the next chapter and read, God shows up in their life and judge them something horrible, they just give it back. They give it back. They get cancer and all kinds of stuff. I mean, nasty stuff that we've read about before happens to them, and they decide this is ridiculous. This is crazy. Get it out of here. They take 2 little calves that should have been nursing, and they hook it to a little ox cart, and they load it on there. By the way, why is it that uncircumcised Philistines could grab the ark and carry it to their house of gods and didn't die? And why is it when all this judgment comes, uncircumcised Philistines can pick that ark up and put it on a cart and send it back to the nation of Israel and not die for having touched it? But when priests get ready to move it on David's command, and it shakes just a little bit, and one of them reaches out to steady it, it drops dead instantly. There's no power in the furniture, folks. Makes me wonder how many folks around the world today are going to spend eternity in hell because they're trusting in furniture. Oh, I was baptized, or my name's on the roll at such and such a church, or we did such and such, and we did. And this is what God's going to say. They shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him, because he hath withdrawn himself from them. And do you understand that this comes in light of verse 5? We spent an entire week last week because I felt like it was really important understanding how terrible a judgment this is. And in the worst of times, they cannot find God. You know why? Because they're still unrepentant. God is not glorified in emergency religion. Oh, God, if you deliver me from this, I'll go to church every week until... No, you won't. No, you won't. He is not concerned with your emergency religion. He is not concerned with your token worship. Well, I only miss every once in a while. What is the heart attitude when you're here? And better yet, what's the heart attitude even when you're not here? Righteousness has nothing to do with what we do when we gather together in this building. We just simply come together for corporate worship. Righteousness is something that happens 24/7 all the time, and we're only here for a couple hours a week. He is hidden. Can you imagine? In the worst of times, I wonder how desperate the nation of Israel is before they finally send for the Ark of the Covenant, because that's what happens to us. We want to go on in our sinful lifestyle. We want to live the way we want to. We want to make the choices that we want to. And when we are finally at the end of our rope, then we're going to throw God some token worship. Well, let's go get the Ark of the Covenant. That'll make everything right. We better read the Christmas story on Christmas, or we better show up for Mother's Day, or God's not going to bless us this year. And then the whole rest of the time we're going to live the way He wants to? He's hidden. Why is He hidden? What an incredible statement. What's He doing? He's waiting for true repentance. See what He says? They shall not find Him, for He hath withdrawn Himself from them. Now it's interesting because there are times when we could go through the whole Old Testament, we could see time after time after time where the nation of Israel cried out to God and He answered. And here they are, they're crying out. In a minute we're going to see they cry aloud. Why doesn't He answer? Because it's not true repentance. It's not true repentance. God seeks those that will worship Him in spirit and in truth. You worship Him the way He tells you to from this book. He does not fit into your lifestyle. You change to worship Him. I got a little intrigued by that phrase, He is hidden. So I did a little research, and I want to share it really quickly with you. Proverbs 1:28. I'm going to go kind of quickly because we have several to look at, so don't feel bad if you don't get there. Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. Verses right above it are talking about desolation and destruction. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 15. And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Now, we don't understand this, but a Jewish person quite frequently would either stand there and raise their hands to heaven, or they would get down on their face and open their hands. And it was supposed to be that God would see them. And what God is saying here is, every time you think you're religious, whether you're standing there with your hands above your head imploring me, or whether you're flat on your face with your hands outstretched, the only thing I see is the blood of the sin on your hands. I don't see repentance. I don't see true worship. Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 11. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. Ezekiel 8:18. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. Why? It's not about how loud the voice is, it's about the sincerity that's behind it. And finally, Micah chapter 3, verse 4. Then shall they cry unto the Lord, but He will not hear them. He will even hide His face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doing. See, they're crying on one hand that they haven't changed the way they behaved, and God says, you're not going to find me because I'm not available. I'm hiding from you. And I'm waiting for that moment when you finally decide that the sin in the world isn't worth it, and you're ready to come to me in true repentance. I'm tired of the show. I'm tired of the fake. I'm tired of the token. I want folks that will worship me in spirit and in truth. They have been fitting God into their life, mixing worship of Jehovah with Baal worship. Now he immediately goes into chapter 7, if you go back to Hosea chapter 5. Now reason I wanted to take so much time this morning and look at all those passages is I want you to see this isn't a new problem. There are plenty of times where God was available to the nation of Israel, and there are plenty of times that he is silent and not saying a word because there's no true relationship there. Look at verse 7. We've already talked about the beginning of this. They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. They stand before him guilty. They've broken the covenant with God. The strange children is an interesting term because here we have the natural consequences of sin. You have all this adultery that's going on at these temples. Baal is the fertility god, and so they're trying to be super fertile. And while they're having all these inappropriate relationships with everyone, they're having all these kids that are being born. And God says, do you expect me to recognize and bless the natural consequences of your sin? You get drunk and drive down the road and wreck your car and lose your leg. You expect God to put your leg back on? Hey, wake up. You just dealt with the natural consequences of sin. You want to make decisions apart from me? You're not going to ask my advice. You're going to go off running around, and then when it turns badly, you're going to come running back to me and say, oh, you're scared out of love and God, good. And God's saying, are you kidding me? You are experiencing nothing but the natural consequences of sin. You expect me to bless strange children? It gets worse because I believe there's a double meaning here. Not only are these children that are born out of adulterous situations that are going on all over the place, but they're strange in the fact that you tell your kids not to talk to strangers. You don't know that person. And they're raising up a whole generation of young people, and they know absolutely nothing about God. Wake up, folks, because we're doing the same thing in our country. We live in the Bible Belt. Ask a teenager sometime. Ask them. Ask them a simple biblical question. We're not talking about doctrine for crying out loud. Ask them who Jesus Christ is. I mean, we're talking kids that go to church. My youth pastor warned me, in order to go on mission trips when I was a youngster, every year I had to go and I had to lead into the Lord. Imagine leading a youth pastor to the Lord. That's intimidating. The first year I went down there and it wasn't too bad. Went through some verses, The second year I went down there and I was all excited because I thought, well, this isn't going to be too bad. And then he started in with, well, who's that? And I don't know about. And the third year I went down there and I thought, man, that was pretty tough last year. I walked in and I tried to talk to him and he said, who's God? I said, what? He said, I don't know who Jesus is. I've never heard of him. I had to go to Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and try to show him who God is and how he stands accountable before him. Boy, you talk about struggling. I had a really tough time. And when we were getting ready to go, I thought, man, that's pretty rough. And he said, there's coming a day when the majority will respond to you when you knock on somebody's door, when you try and share your faith. And the majority of people in this country will respond the way I responded today. And I thought, not in my lifetime. I was wrong. I was wrong. We have raised up a generation of folks who go to church, who have their name somewhere, and occasionally they sing songs, but during the week their lifestyle is usually filthy. And when you ask them about God, they know almost nothing about God, but they'll show up on Sunday and do it all over again and wonder why in the world their life is a train wreck. So he starts in the second part of verse 7. And he says, now shall a month devour them with their portions. There's war coming. You have been suffering the natural consequences of sin, but I'm telling you that about to turn the corner and God's judgment on sin is going to start. A couple of things I want you to notice as he introduces this, because he's going to continue to develop it in 10 through 15, and we'll finish that up next week. But he says, a month will devour them with their portions. This month might not be a literal month. It usually refers to a new moon feast day. And so he said, possibility that he's saying you might be in the middle of a feast day thinking that you are worshiping God and he's going to bring judgment upon you because your heart's not in it. I personally think he is saying it's not going to be a long campaign. I believe he's talking about the speed. The destruction that the Assyrians are going to come upon them. Like a leopard. I mean, woof! It does not take them long when they start at the top part of the kingdom until they are all the way down, threatening the southern kingdom. Probably referring to the second invasion by Assyria, because it talks in the verses we'll go over next week about how they tried to barter with Assyria to help them. I want you to see the extent. Not only is it something that comes very swiftly upon them, it says devour, strong word, them with their portions, the people and all their goods. Now, there have been kings that have come in, and as long as you kind of bow the knee and go along with it, it's not that big a deal. Assyria comes in, he wipes them out. Wipes them out. They are unrecognizable as the 10 tribes of Israel. Wipes them out, wipes their stuff out. God says you don't even wake up for the natural consequences of sin. You're about ready to face the judgment of sin. You say, how bad is it? He lists a couple of towns here, and these towns are interesting. Look at verse 8. Blow ye the cornet in Gibeah and the trumpet in Ramah. Both of those were used for means of communication. Now, Gibeah is a town of Benjamin. You say, why is that interesting? Because Benjamin and Judah are in the southern kingdom. And then you have the other tribes that are in the northern kingdom, of which part of Benjamin is included. But this town is located in Benjamin, so it's not even in the 10 tribes in the north. It's situated on a hill. It was built by Asa in 1 Kings 15:22. And in there we read it was a garrison against invasion from the north, because Asa was worried that the 10 tribes, who numbered a whole lot more than him, would come down there and try and take Jerusalem and reunite the entire Israel under the northern king and kill him and leave them without. Well, what about Ramah? Ramah is near Gibeah, and there's a little inlet that goes down into Judah, and so they built this watchtower on a hill here, because if you were coming in, it was a natural way to enter down in. So basically what he's saying is, you have Gibeah kind of on one side and Ramah kind of on the other side, and he's saying these towns were built as watchtowers in case there was an invasion from the 10 tribes. And he's making a statement to the 10 tribes, and he's saying, do you realize, Benjamin, you better watch, because it's not the 10 tribes you have to worry about coming after you. When the Syrians get done with them, there are no 10 tribes. It's the Assyrians you have to worry about. They are going to run through the 10 tribes like water. We're talking tidal wave. You think you can raise an army? You think you can stand in the way? I'm telling you, when the Assyrians come, they're wiping through you faster than you ever thought could happen. You won't even have time to celebrate another new moon. And he doesn't tell the towns in the northern tribes to blow the trumpet. It's already too late for that. He tells Judah, whom he hasn't hardly been discussing in this thing, except to say, don't follow the northern tribes or the same punishment is coming upon you. Now he says, do you realize that God's judgment is coming so fierce and so fast, you better blow the trumpets in Benjamin, the border towns, and let them know. And the third town he mentions is heartbreaking. Look at it. Cry aloud, Beth-Aven, after the Benjamin. Beth-Aven is another term for Bethel. Bethel, we looked at it before, was called the King's Chapel, because that's where the heathen kings of the north used to go down and do their worshiping. In Beth-Aven, there was a great big priest's house that was built for the prophets of Balaam, and by the way, 400 of them would fit in it. So it was a pretty good size temple they built to Balaam. king would go down there and he would do his worshiping, and over and over and over again, we could take you to passage after passage after passage where God has dealt with Bethel. And what he is saying right here, he is saying, listen, cry aloud. Go down to the temple of Baal in Beth-Aven and cry out to him and see if he can stop what's coming. See if he can judge what's coming. Because you've been crying out to him for years. You've done everything you can to fit him into your filthy lifestyle, and you've left me sitting on the shelf. Now when judgment comes, don't be crying to me and go, why are we loving God? Why don't you run down and look to Baal for help? That's what he's saying. But let me remind you real quickly here before we close. The last time they cried out to Baal. Because it's in 1 Kings chapter 18. And you'll be familiar with it when you see it. You see, it hasn't rained for a long, long, long time. We're dry, are we not? I drive around this county and we're hooking folks up, and you look out there at little creeks that you used to have to worry, you can walk right through because there isn't a drop of water in them. I thought about starting to post pictures of all the little creeks and rivers around here. I mean, my goodness, you couldn't baptize somebody in the river down here. You have to roll them over 3 times to get them wet. There's no water in it. Hey, listen, we haven't had drought for a year, right? Our creek's almost dried up, and we haven't had drought for a year. The nation of Israel hasn't had rain for 3 years. And they're still fornicating all over the place because Baal is the fertility god. So certainly Baal's going to show up and answer, and all of a sudden Elijah shows up here in 1 Kings 18. And you see what he says. Remember this, right? Look at verse 2. Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in the land. Yeah, that's because there hasn't been any rain. But jump down to verse 17, because that's where it gets really interesting. It came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he the trouble of Israel? Listen! Stop blaming God for the consequences of your sin! Ahab looks at the guy that's been warning him over and over and over again and has the guts to say, Are you the person that's been trouble in Israel? I love Elijah's response. And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that they have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baal. And you want to know why you're in this mess? Your sinful lifestyle. I'll tell you what we do in verse 19. Send and gather me all of Israel on Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400. Now, when we get up there and we have this scene, it only talks about the 450 prophets, but there's actually how many people up there? There's 850. You have 450 prophets of Baal, and then you have 400 priests that are ministering in the groves. And all 850 people show up to the mountain, and you got the whole mountain is covered with Israelites. And Elijah comes up to him, look at verse 21, and he says, How long will you halt between 2 opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him. What is the next phrase? Listen, you want to know how stubborn we are? How set on sin we are? After 3 years of drought, he can't even get a word out of them. Can't get a word out of them. How long are you going to sit here and try and make up your mind whether you're going to worship the one true God or whether you're going to worship Baal? Dead silence. All right, object lesson time. You want to be stubborn? You want to be stupid? You want to set your heels in? You want to just hang on to your sin? Let's go. Bring 2 bullocks and let them choose a bullock for themselves and cut it in pieces and lay it on wood and put no fire under it. And I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under it. Call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. So they pick up the bullock and they dress it and they do their whole thing and they get it done. And we look down at verse 26 and it says, And they call on the name of Baal from morning until... Sounds like some church services we have around here. I mean, I'd like to know how many people got up to preach and to pray and to implore. Wouldn't you? It's a long church service. And who shows up? Same one that showed up for the last 3 years when no rain's fallen. So Elijah gets up and he's mocking him and he says, is he a god? Maybe he's talking to somebody and you didn't get his attention, or maybe he's pursuing after something and you're not as important, whatever it is he's chasing. Maybe he's on a journey, or maybe he's asleep and he has to be awake. Now, listen. I mean, seriously. Would you not by now be thinking, man alive, what in the world am I worshiping? Look at verse 28. You don't give up sin easily. They cried, what? Let's wake him up. Well, let's get his attention. They cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets. By the way, that's where the cutting thing comes from. Nothing new under the sun, folks. You can go back in the Bible and you can find the root of all this stuff that you see going on today. It's pagan worship. In pagan worship, they cut themselves to show how serious they were to their God. Now, it goes on until the time of the evening sacrifice. We're talking hours later. It's hot. There hasn't been rain for 3 years. These people are cutting themselves and bleeding, and the blood is running out for hours. Can you imagine some of these priests, the shape that they're in by the time of the evening offering? Says to him, go down to Bethel. Go ahead, cry aloud. Cut yourselves. Offer your bullock. Run around and fornicate all over the place because it fits your filthy lifestyle. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to get the same answer at Bethel that you got on Mount Carmel. One prophet among 850 throws barrels of water on, adding insult to injury. I mean, can you imagine how precious the water must have been? How hot and how hard it was to carry it from down there by the sea up there. You pour salt water on there, and God rains down fire and licks up the whole thing. Still have Baal worship in Hosea's day. We still have homosexuality in our day, and God rained down fire on Sodom and Gomorrah and destroyed the plain. And we're still clinging to it. And it's becoming more and more and more popular today. God is seeking someone to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And He's not the least bit interested in your emergency worship or your little token worship that you're throwing His way. Because God doesn't work that way. Don't you dare get in the midst of a war and look at God and say, I don't understand how loving God can do this. We ought to be on our knees begging that loving God to be merciful. Because a holy, righteous God has to judge sin. He says, do you realize that you are being followed after Benjamin? If the nation of Israel plows through Benjamin, who's next? There's only one tribe left, Judah. And eventually it happens, and the Syrians, although Jerusalem never falls, conquers most the nation of Israel and wreaks havoc with them. Not to be another great nation, even really to this day, struggling with identity, struggling with their lifestyle. And God says, when the judgment comes, and in verse 9 he uses some tough language. He says, desolate, utterly cut off. And notice, He throws in there, so you know exactly what he's doing, as rebuke. He leaves no little point where you can imagine that this judgment is because of something else. God says, no, this tragedy in your life, you're looking at it and say, how could a loving God do this? I'm telling you, I am doing this. I'm doing it as rebuke. And then he throws in, it will surely be. It has been determined. And as we've been studying in Revelation, when you talk about the one who's sitting there on the throne, when he tells you something's going to happen, you better well believe something's going to happen. There's no evading it. There's no overcoming it. There's no escaping it. You see, the time for repentance is long past. And next week we're going to see he tried to come in like a moth and deal with them. They wouldn't have it. So he had to turn around and come in like a lion. Moth destroys things. But who's afraid of a moth? Lion? No, a lion tears up stuff. Does he have your attention yet? Let's bow for a word of prayer. Father, it is heartbreaking to see how stubborn we are in our sin, how devoted we are to everything but you. No wonder you are looking for someone to stand in the hedge and make up again. Because even in our own country, even in the Bible Belt, there is a serious lack of people who worship you as you deserve. Trying to be conformed to the image of your dear Son, Jesus Christ, exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit in their lives. Instead, there's so much lip service while we go on about our life, ignorant of you in every way, but a little worship on Sunday. And when the natural consequences of sin set in, we ignore them. And most of the time, we even blame you for them. But there's coming a point where the judgment steps in. And the fierceness, the wrath of Almighty God gets turned loose on sin that you hate so much. Before it's too late in our own lives,